Okay, now we're going to look at a new feature that I've added recently, which is the ability to customize the live timing information displayed on your Pitboard. This gives you the ability to modify which providers you're using, such as TSL, SpeedHive, MyLapse, Alcamel, or Alpha Live, as well as changing which riders or racers are assigned to your Pitboard, customizing some of the race formats, or even creating new race formats. So by now we've already covered putting manual information into the keyboard, using the keyboard, changing lines, changing colors, adding emojis, etc. This gives you the ability to customize exactly what you see when using the tab key, which launches live timing mode and integrates with most timing providers. To start off, go to pitboard.twoclicksout.co.uk. There'll be a link to that in the description as well as the updated manual. Once you log in, sign up or register, I'm just going to continue with my Google account. You'll see which pit boards are currently assigned to you. If you don't have any pit boards assigned to you, please reach out to me via either WhatsApp or email, and I will ensure that your pit board is assigned to you. So once mine loads, I've got two pit boards here, Britson Racing and HD15 pit board. Britson Racing is a 2-line display, and HD15 is a 3-line display. If I go and edit the pit board, you immediately see that I've got a preview at the top of the screen. This shows me what information is shown during live timing for the practice mode. So it says rows, preview, practice. If I was to change format to race, this is what we'll see whenever we're changing to race. And I'll get into customizing those formats in a second. But high level, if we go from left to right, we have general, which allows you to change the primary user of the pitboard, in this case, James Dermott, it's my son, and his race number, as well as test mode. With test mode enabled, whatever data is currently displayed on the screen now will be sent to your pitboard, and you can test to ensure that it's working okay and you're happy with the formats. Um, there's also an option to add or change providers, as well as adding which racers are assigned to pitboard. There's no real limit to how many racers that you can assign to your pitboard, but within reason, I would say maximum of sort of 5 racers added to the pitboard, because the pitboard, once it connects, will check for an active session for the providers that you have listed, and it will attempt to look for whatever racers you've declared in that racers section on an active session. If there's a match, it will return the data for that one racer. The pitboard cannot display details of multiple racers at the same time for the same race. If you have, in my case, I have Mason Frederick 5 and James Dermott 27. Those two racers race in different classes in Fab. So the pitboard, whenever I put it out for my son's class, it will show his data, and whenever I put it out for Mason's class, it will show his data. If they were both in the same race, it would pick one or the other. You wouldn't be able to customize it. So you can only show information for one race for one rider. The display formats, and we get into the kind of customization of it. If we look at practice first, you'll notice we have P3 in the top left, and that corresponds to row 1, justification left, which is P live data position class. If I was to change this or remove those kind of handlebar braces, which is Jinja formatting, so more than welcome to do your research or read up on how to use Jinja templating. But I've tried to make this as easy as possible. So you can put P and you can literally just click position and it'll put live data dot position in there. And then you can change the color if you want. Let's go for green, and that will update the preview. And then you can just hit save. At any point, if you mess up and you get an error message, let's say I put in an invalid value here, just type the word invalid, it's not going to display it. If I put in some invalid characters, I'm just trying to trigger a preview error, not going to happen. But if I do something I'm not happy with it, you always have the ability to hit restore. So if you mess up, you can hit restore. In this case, I have a 2-line display. I'll hit restore, and that's back to factory default. All the pitboards are shipped with the same configuration, which is practice and race, with position class, time left in the session. You'll notice there's a T and then time to go, which populates the second row here. And that's set to pink. If I was to change that to orange and scroll up, you'll see the T is now orange, as well as race format, which shows position, laps to go, and gap behind. You can customize these or you can add your own formats. So let's do that now. I'll just restore this pitboard back to default, and I will add a new display for Harrison Day's pitboard. So I'm going to add behind, which is something that's been requested by a few riders. So this is a use case that during a race, you want to know your basic information. You also want to know who's behind you in the race. So let's customize row 1 first. We're going to start with laps to go. That's how he likes it. We'll do L6. That's how many laps to go. This is some test data. And we'll put in P. Let's just put P position. Justify this one left, this one right, and change the color to pink. There we go. We have row 1 done. Now let's add another row, which will show the gap behind. To do this, I'm just going to increment the row to 2, so I can see a preview and a preview error there because I've got no data going in yet. And I'm going to put in the gap behind. So if I look at the data fields here, I've got gap behind. I'm just going to click gap behind, so that says 0.128. We might want to show a plus sign in front of that, and we might want to change the format to, or the color format to green, for example. Okay, we can also shorten this text. Okay, so we're currently showing 3 decimal places, which the writer may not be interested in. We don't need to show that many. So we can shorten it using some brackets with a colon separator with a 1. So that will show 1 character, that will show 2 characters, 3 characters. I think 0.2 is more than they don't need to know the information down to 100th of a second. So 0.2. Justification none, because this is going to take up the whole row. And then let's add another line. And this line, we want to show the writer's name behind. Now I have some examples here, and I will continue to add these as people request information. But I can put the writer behind name, for example. And I will put that in yellow. So the writer behind name, in this case, is Jones. I think this data is from Bemsey Team Green at Donington Park in October 2025. I'm not sure it was qualifying our race, but the sample data that's on here is populated from that. So I believe that's Chloe Jones. And how this is populated, I don't want to get into the weeds, the customization of it. But essentially, we have riders, and then we have riders position +1 and their name. If I was to simply change that to number, it'd be the writer's number behind 30. And there's also a helper method for it. I can change this back to name. And if I wasn't to increment the position and just said position.name, Dermot, I've modified some of the test data. So that's my surname. So if I do +1, that's going to be the writer's behind name. And then I can hit save. Okay, and now that that format's saved now. So if I put the board into test mode, if I want to test it on my pitboard and there's no current live sessions, I can use test mode. I can hit the tab key. It'll load and it might default to practice first. You just keep hitting the tab key, and it'll say race, and it'll say behind, and it'll go back to practice again. So you can just validate that what you're seeing on your pitboard is accurate, and the changes that you've made are working properly. If you want to restore it back to default, you can do. This 3-line display. I'm just going to hit restore 3-line display, and you'll notice that that's got rid of behind, and that's just defaulted back to what the pitboards are currently shipped with. If I take another use case, which would be adding myself to a pitboard or changing or modifying riders, I'm just going to do this on the Brits and Racing pitboard. So say I want to dust off my leathers next weekend and go racing with Bemsey. I'm going to select my provider. In this case, it'll be TSL. I'm going to race with Bemsey. If I have a look on TSL's website and find the championship that I want to race in, we have Bemsey here, which is BMCRC. I'm just going to copy that name. The case doesn't matter, but I'm just going to put it in lowercase to match everything else. So I'm just going to add BMCRC there as a provider, and then I'm going to add myself to the racers. So I'm just going to put in Dermot because I know TSL doesn't display first names, it just displays last. I'm just going to put 87. So that will match if there is a rider called Dermot with race number 87 in TSL BMCRC or in Speed Hive Fab. So if there's a Fab event running or a TSL BEMSI event, and any of those numbers and name combinations match, then the data will be shown. Um, I can simplify this slightly and remove the name and not provide a name. That way, if the number 87 matches in SpeedHive or TSL, that data will be displayed. If you want to reduce it, I could just remove the other riders, and that way now only TSL BEMSI with number 87 would be shown. So if I go out in qualifying in, let's say I'm session number 2, I'll have my data, and then say in session number 4, there's another rider with number 87. Their information would also be shown on the pitboard, although I'm not going to be putting the pitboard out for that rider. But that's how it matches. There's no transponder number information provided by SpeedHive or TSL. The matching is solely done based on race number and or name. I can do both. Normally, you'd only have one distinct race number in a class. It's not very often that you would have two people with the same race number in the same class. Okay, so that's, I guess, a brief introduction. I can go into, or possibly will go into more detail at a later date, but it gives you an idea of the customization and flexibility that you can do. You don't have to change anything, and if you want me to still make your changes, I can do that for you, but this is just to be able to provide you with the option of doing it self-service. So if you decide on a whim on a Thursday that you want to go race in a different championship, you can easily log into this service, add your rider to that championship, or change the information. I'd also encourage you to sit down with your rider or driver or racer and have a look at the display formats and ensure they're exactly what they want. And if the font size isn't right, if the colors aren't right, if they want it simplified slightly, make those changes ahead of time and test them in practice. Um, I will be adding some new data fields over the winter. There's some features that have been requested by riders this year in BSB that have been using the pit boards. They'd like to see some group information, so that's something that we can do. So the group size that they're currently in. So there's some calculations to work that out, um, as well as some other minor improvements on data transfer to the pit board. So I'm aware that at some circuits the signal isn't amazing. So I'm currently optimizing the size of data that I'm sending to the pit boards and having feedbacks for what happens if there is a delay in sending the data. So more improvements coming soon. Thanks for watching.